Ayan, hello! Magandang gabi po sa inyong lahat ulit. Ito na naman po tayo, maglalamay sa second day ng confirmation of charges kay Duterte, mga katropa. Sana kayo? Hello! Magandang hapon kay Sir Jojo, nandito na siya kanina, nauna siya. At sumunod ay ang ating si Brother Grim at si Mami S. Ayan. Waiting po tayo, waiting. Ayan, waiting. Live na. Teka, kakalampagin ko lang yung ating mga katropa. Yan, sinabihan ko na yung ating mga katropa. Yan. Antay lang po tayo. Waiting pa, waiting. Ayan. Namumulaklak sa mura ang buganga ng mga DDS, mga katropa. Galit na galit sila. Gigil. Mostly ang mga debate nila. Ayan na. Teka, mga katropa, ayan na. Teka lang. Start na mga katropa.
All rise, veuillez vous lever.
Let's go.
The International Criminal Court is now in session. L'audience de la Cour pénale internationale.
Music lover, hello, magandang hapon. Ay, ito na, mga katropa.
Please be seated. Veuillez vous asseoir.
Mamatay sila sa gigil ng mga DDS.
Bonjour à tous.
Good morning, everyone. I'd like to once again
Ulang sunugin ang ating channel.
And Madam Court Officer, if you could please call the case.
Good morning, Madam President, Your Honors. Situation in the Republic of the Philippines in the case of the prosecutor versus Rodrigo Roa Duterte, case reference ICC 0121-0125. And for the record, we are in open session.
Parang mahina, no?
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. I would now like to call upon parties and participants to confirm that the people here in the courtroom are the same as the ones present yesterday. Mr. Prosecutor?
Madame la Présidente.
Good morning, Madam President, Your Honors. There are a few changes in the composition of the OTP team today. I'm here representing the office, as was the case yesterday. Beside me is Julian Nichols, senior trial lawyer. He was here yesterday. I also have Edward Jeremy with me, trial lawyer. Robin Croft, trial lawyer. Ai Do Young, associate trial lawyer. Sylvie Wakam, associate trial lawyer. Loria. And finally, James Miriti, our case manager. Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Prosecutor. Legal representatives of victims. Good morning, Madam President. Only one change on our team. We have one change, a defection actually. One of our team members could not be with us actually.
Composition today, and we are once again ably assisted and supported by our Filipino colleagues in the gallery.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. Now, Mr. Prosecutor, you may now address the court regarding submissions on the merits. It is Mr. Jeremy who will be giving this presentation.
Thank you, Madam President. Your Honours, dear colleagues, my name is Edward Jeremy, and over the next 45 minutes or so, I will focus on some of the evidence that demonstrates Mr. Duterte's responsibility for the crimes charged in counts 2 and 3. My presentation will comprise two parts. Part one will focus on the crimes charged in count 2. And as you know, this count relates to the murders of 14 so-called high-value targets. And part 2 will focus on examples of crimes charged in count 3. And this count relates to murders and attempted murders of 45 victims in the course of barangay or neighborhood clearance operations. First, Your Honours, a brief introduction. As Mr. Nichols made clear yesterday, Mr. Duterte campaigned for the presidency that, on the basis that, if elected, he would implement his Davao model of killing on a national scale. And once sworn in as president of the Philippines on the 30th of June 2016, this is exactly what he did. One insider witness explained what applying the Davao model nationwide meant in practice, and this is tab 49. As we see on our screens, Evidence Channel 2, this witness stated, quote, "It means that he wants to apply how Davao addresses the drug problem in a national scope, the whole country. It means that zero tolerance on drugs. And what I understood is that we have to eliminate, neutralize drug pushers, just as in Davao." And as we've heard, this Davao model also included the payments of rewards for such killings. And as president, Mr. Duterte expanded and replicated this Davao model across the Philippines, working together with many of the same people, his co-perpetrators, following the same plan and using the same methods. On becoming president, Mr. Duterte appointed his co-perpetrators from Davao, a number of whom Mr. Nichols introduced yesterday, to senior positions in the police and the government. And in these high-level positions, Mr. Duterte and his co-perpetrators had authority over thousands of state personnel, including those that formed a national network that the co-perpetrators used to carry out the charged crimes, as Ms. Croft will shortly describe in more detail. And Your Honours, central to this plan to carry out the charged crimes was the formal national anti-illegal drugs campaign in the Philippines. And this campaign was launched through a document titled Command Memorandum Circular number 16, 2016. This was issued by newly appointed PNP Chief Ronald De La Rosa on the 1st of July 2016, the first full day of Mr. Duterte's presidency. On our screens, we see the first and last page of this document, and this is tab 112 of our binder. We see that the subject is, quote, PNP Anti-Illegal Drugs Campaign Plan, Project Double Barrel. And we see it is dated the 1st of July, 2016. On the first page, there are a series of supporting references for this memorandum. And the first foundational reference is the quote, pronouncement of President Rodrigo R. Duterte to get rid of illegal drugs during the first 6 months of his term. And yesterday we heard multiple examples of the violent nature of those pronouncements and speeches. If we focus on the last page of this document, page 18, we see that the distribution list comprised the highest levels of law enforcement in the Philippines. And on the right side, we see it signed by Ronald M. De La Rosa, Philippine National Police, the PNP. And Your Honours, will look now at some parts of this document which essentially sets out general guidelines for the implementation of this project, Double Barrel. Focusing first on the execution of this project, Double Barrel, we see in paragraph 5, now on our screens, as follows. The PMP intends to equally address illegal drug problems in the barangays and at the same time pursue the neutralization of illegal drug personalities, as well as the backbone of illegal drugs network operating in the country. And Your Honours will note the use of this word neutralization. While on its face, this word may be open to interpretation, insider witnesses provide evidence that within law enforcement within the Netherlands, within the Philippines, to neutralize meant to kill. And notably, one insider witness explained the significance of the use of this word neutralize in this command memorandum, and that's tab 54. And the witness stated as follows, quote, they used the word neutralize to emphasize the kill order of President Duterte, because that is the promise of President Duterte even before the campaign. And Your Honours, the sprinkling of references to human rights in this document should be viewed in this context. Moving on to the concept of operations, this is set out on page 3 of this memorandum as follows, quote, the PMP anti-illegal drugs campaign plan, Project Double Barrel, will be conducted in a two-pronged approach, namely Project Tokang and Project HVT. The first prong or barrel, Project Tokang, focused on the clearance of the drug-affected barangays. This relates to count 3, which I'll discuss shortly in the second part of my presentation. The second barrel, which relates to count 2, was Project HVT, or High Value Target, which I will focus on now. Turning to page 6 of this document, we read as follows. Project HVT is a massive and reinvigorated conduct of anti-illegal drugs operations, targeting illegal drugs personalities and drug syndicates. And as Your Honours are aware, it was in the course of this Project HVT that the prosecution alleges the 14 victims of count 2 were murdered. And many of the high value target victims of count 2 incidents were included in charts and lists that Mr. Duterte showed during public, often televised appearances and speeches. And just as he did in Davao, as president, Mr. Duterte publicly named persons he alleged were involved in drugs, and many of those would end up as victims in his so-called war on drugs. For example, on the 7th of August 2016, Mr. Duterte held a televised press conference in Davao City, during which he named 150 public officials who he claimed were involved in the drug trade. These included Abrera Mayor Rolando Espinosa and Osamis Mayor Reynaldo Parahinog, as well as various members of the Parahinog family. This speech is at tab 31, and we'll play 2 clips of that now.
Ingay. Guys, pasensya ka na, ang ingay ng mga sakit.
Reynaldo Parahinog, alias Andong, the mayor of Osamis City. Nova Princess Parahinog Chavez used to be the wife of, I think, Colanco. Yung poster boy doon sa O blandi-blandi pa ang buhok. Hindi naman, tisoy. Alam mo, baski saya magpunta, abangan ko kayo. Baski wala na ako sa presidency, habang may baril ako.
Wherever you go, I will be waiting for you, even if I'm no longer president, as long as I have a gun. And indeed, as your honours are aware, Mr. Duterte did not need to wait long. On the 5th of November 2016, Mayor Espinosa was murdered. That's charged incident 13. Then, on the 30th of July 2017, Mayor Parahinog, together with a number of others, was also murdered. That's charged incident 14. And during the same speech that we just saw, Mr. Duterte emphasized his direct involvement in the preparation of this list as follows.
Third, the validation. I'm the one reading it, and I am the sole person responsible for this one.
And this list was subsequently published by the media, who referred to it as the narco list, or as we see from the article on our screens, simply the Duterte list. And Your Honours, Mr. Duterte continued to flaunt his list of so-called high-value targets. Perhaps the most significant of these lists was the President Rodrigo Roa Duterte list, or the PRRD list for short, and that's at tab 48 of our list of materials. Your Honours, this was basically an Excel-style spreadsheet that listed persons alleged to be high-value targets. The slide now on our screen shows the first page of the PRRD list, which includes photos of various persons designated alleged to be high-value targets. And at the bottom of this list are a series of different tabs, some of which have been enlarged on our screens. And as we see, they include different regions of the Philippines. And within these tabs are lists of names and identifying information of persons alleged to be high-value targets. And the persons included in this PRRD list were also assigned different levels, as set out in our PCB, in our brief, paragraph 99. As we see from the slide now on our screens, these levels range from 1 to 5. At the lowest level 1, this included lower level government and police, as well as street level pushers. And at the highest level 5, this represented the highest value targets, drug wholesalers, financiers, and high-ranking police officers. And consistent with the Deval model of killing, rewards were also paid when a high-value target was neutralized, meaning killed. And this evidence is set out at paragraph 52 and 99 of our brief. And these rewards were not part of the regular PNP budget, but were provided by Mr. Duterte, who also publicly offered perpetrators rewards for killing. Your Honours, to sum up the significance of the PRRD list, I turn to the words of another insider witness, and this is tab 54. Quote, "This list was used by the police in their operations. And if you are in the list, you will be the subject for police operations. And most of the time, the people on the list are killed. So basically, the PRRD list is a dead list." And Mr. Duterte publicly paraded this PRRD list on multiple occasions. For example, during another televised speech on the 2nd of February 2017, tab 111, he stated the following.
This is the drug industry of the Philippines.
And in this same speech, we'll shortly see Mr. Duterte holding another page of this PRRD list, reacting to criticisms based on human rights in relation to his so-called war on drugs.
Tapos sabihin mo lang ako takot-takutin mo ako ng human rights. Pakain ko ito, bunganga nila. Oh.
And Your Honours, on this issue of human rights, as Mr. Nichols explained yesterday, during his speeches in Davao, Mr. Duterte, well versed in the law, would occasionally seek to legitimize his encouragement of state violence by references to human rights and self-defense. And he continued to do so as president. For example, as we will see in the next clip, during a speech on the 20th of September 2016, which is at tab 130, he stated the following.
Pagka bumunot, patayin mo. Pag hindi bumunot, patayin mo rin. Oh, tangin. Para matapos na. Kasi mawala pa bro. Ako na ang bahala sa inyo. Itaga ninyo ito sa puso ninyo. For as long as I am the president, nobody but nobody, no military man or policeman will go to prison because they perform their duties well. Ako ang mapakulong sila. Sabihin mo lang, utos ni Mayor yun.
So that was Mr. Duterte's message to the military and to the police. Kill, whether or not your target pulls a gun, and I will protect you. And Your Honours, as we will now hear during the same speech, in case there was any doubts, Mr. Duterte made it very clear that this promise of protection related not only to lawful killings.
For as long as there is that power to pardon sa Konstitusyon, yan ang weapon ko against crime. Magmasakir kayo ng 100, di ba? 100 rin kayo, edi pardon lahat eh. Restored to full political and civil rights, plus a promotion to both.
And Your Honours, as was so often the case, Mr. Duterte's message was repeated and amplified in the media, as we see in the next slide, which is tab 88, which reads as follows, quote, Duterte to troops, massacre criminals, I'll promote you. With the byline, in the same speech, Duterte tells soldiers he will never order them to do anything illegal. And this was the pattern, Your Honours. Out of one side of his mouth, quietly, occasionally, he would speak about self-defense. This was Mr. Duterte, the lawyer, keenly aware of his own legal jeopardy, especially once he was no longer president. And out of the other side of his mouth, loudly, frequently, he would say, kill, and I will protect you, I will pardon you, and I will promote you. And this was Mr. Duterte, the strongman president who orders the murders of drug lords and alleged criminals. And as the charged incidents demonstrate, Mr. Duterte's co-perpetrators, as well as the police on the streets, understood his message to kill loud and clear. As an example, Your Honours, I'll focus briefly now on incident number 13. You'll recall that on assuming his presidency, Mr. Duterte publicly expressed his frustration with mayors who he alleged were involved in the drug trade, including Mayor Espinosa. On the 1st of August 2016, he gave Mayor Espinosa, then Mayor of Albuera, 24 hours to surrender to the police. And the following day, Mayor Espinosa did surrender to PMP Chief Ronald Bato de la Rosa. In a public speech on the 5th of August 2016, Mr. Duterte stated the following in reference to Mayor Espinosa's surrender, and this can be found at tab 129.
Ang problema ay yung mayor ng Albuera. Mabuti, nakaabot siya doon kay Bato na pinahanap ko, shoot on sight. Parang aso. Eh, ang tingin ko talaga sa inyo mo. Kayo, parang aso.
And on around the 5th of November 2016, a few months after Mr. Duterte had him tracked down like a dog, Rolando Espinosa was murdered while in detention in Leyte Provincial Jail, together with another man, Raul Yap. According to the PNP's official narrative of this incident, there was a shootout between Espinosa and Yap and officers who attempted to serve search warrants on them while in prison. By contrast, the evidence demonstrates, as set out in paragraphs 107 to 110 of our brief, that these men were murdered in their prison cells in a coordinated operation involving various state agents. CCTV was disabled, guns were planted in their cells, rewards were paid. And as we see on the slide now on our screens, tab 48 of our list of materials, both Mr. Espinosa and Mr. Yap were included in the PRRD list, amongst other individuals whose names have been blurred by the prosecution. Rolando Espinosa in the upper row is recorded as a mayor and alleged to be a drug lord, indicated as level 4. And Raul Yap in the lower row is also alleged to be a drug lord, listed as level 3. The arrest of both men is noted, and this is shown on the right side. Then separately, it is noted that they were neutralized. And in a further indication that to neutralize meant to kill, as we see here, it is only on the date of their death, the 5th of November 2016, that they were noted as neutralized. Additionally, in the tab of the PRRD spreadsheet labeled high value targets, now visible on our screens, there is a photo of Mayor Espinosa. He's the person in the yellow t-shirt in the second row on the far right side. As you can see from the enlarged photo, he's been crossed out in red, which, as a witness confirmed, indicates that he had been killed. And if your honors look closely at this list, you'll see it appears to be the same list that Mr. Duterte held during a speech on the 2nd of February 2017. And for reference, these are tabs 48 and 111. And your honors, following these murders, Mr. Duterte continued his public threats. For example, on the 9th of February 2017, he stated publicly that mayors involved in illegal drugs should resign or face death. We'll play an extract of this speech, which is at tab 132 now.
Tatawagin ko yung mga mayors, ilak ko, no, kami-kami lang. Sabihin ko talaga sa kanila. Ayun, ganun kakapal yung pinakita ko sa inyo. Hanapin mo yung pangalan mo dyan, mayor. Tangin na pag nandyan yung pangalan mo, may problema ka. Talagang papatayin kita.
Mr. Duterte's message to the mayors could not be clearer. If your name is in my list, then I'll kill you. And in case anyone watching this speech has any doubt about his intentions, Mr. Duterte goes on to comment on extrajudicial killings. And as he does so, your honors will note the nonchalant, casual manner in which he draws his finger across his throat. Let's play the video.
Wala akong ako talaga ang wala akong maipagyabang. Kaya ginadaan ko na lang sa extrajudicial killing.
Oh my God.
And in this opulent, gilded presentation room, the officials laugh along with their president while he boasts about his skills in extrajudicial killing. And outside, on the streets of the Philippines, the bodies pile up. The evidence from one data set shows that as at the date of this speech, 9th of January 2017, almost 1,500 people had been killed in Mr. Duterte's so-called war on drugs. And that's paragraph 73 of our brief. A few months later, in an April 2017 speech, which I won't play, but is a tab 134.2, Mr. Duterte called the deceased Espinosa a, quote, son of a bitch, and after citing multiple allegations of murders by the police, he said he would pardon and reinstate any convicted police officer with a, quote, promotion to ranks higher, end quote. Your Honours, I move now to the second part of my presentation, the murders and attempted murders committed during the barangay clearance operations. And these operations were covered by the first barrel of Project Tokang, which we looked at earlier. We'll briefly return to this document, CMC 16, 2016, and the overview of the two barrels. As the slide on our screen shows, the stated aim of Project Tokang, just focusing on the first sentence, was, quote, accelerating the drive against illegal drugs in affected barangays, end quote. And in practice, Your Honours, this meant murdering some of the most vulnerable members of Filipino society. As witnesses stated, the poor were often targeted because they were the ones least likely to file complaints against the police. To quote one witness on our next slide, he stated, "It was said that the ones that we had to do the Tokang operation on had to be poor. Those who do not have the means to file a complaint or to complain." And similarly, another witness stated the following: based on what we've seen here in the Philippines, the people that were killed or could be killed were the poor, people with no means, simple people who were not able to file charges against them. Your Honours, Project Tokang operations were implemented across the Philippines in a number of ways, as set out in paragraph 75 of our brief. And these operations frequently followed the same modus operandi as we also set out in paragraphs 33 and 114 of our brief, which was as follows. A target was identified, often through the use of lists, such as barangay lists or police station watch lists. The target was then murdered in a police operation. Weapons, drugs, and money, or a combination thereof, were then planted at the crime scene. And then the police reports were repeatedly falsified to legitimate the operations as acts of self-defense. And in this context, as witnesses explain, the police often used the term nanlaban, which translates to fighting back, to describe incidents in which they supposedly shot a victim in self-defense. And these reports were often almost identical. In essence, copy-paste reports in which victims were frequently blamed for their own deaths. And finally, unofficial rewards were paid. Your Honours, I'll briefly focus on a few of the Count 3 incidents to illustrate this pattern. On the day of his inauguration, 30th of June 2016, then President Duterte held a speech in Tondo, Manila, and he directly addressed the public present, including, as we will see, women and children. For reference, this is tab 127. Let's please play the clip.
Ako po'y galit. Pati yung mga pulis dito sa Maynila nakasabit sa droga. Ako po'y nakikiusap, wag ho kayong pumasok dyan kasi papatayin ko talaga kayo.
As we see, Mr. Duterte's message was clear. Stay away from drugs, or I will kill you. And the killing in Tondo began almost immediately following this speech, as we set out in our brief, paragraphs 100 to 101. I'll focus now on, and Tondo is visible on our screens. I'll focus now on incident 23, which also took place in Tondo, on or about the night of the 4th to the 5th of October 2016. As your honours are aware, the alleged victim of this incident 23 was Benjamin Vizda. And we'll shortly see a video which shows Mr. Vizda just before midnight in a vest, in handcuffs, forced onto a motorbike between two police officers and driven away. And this is tab 76, and we'll play the video now.
Oh my God.
And we see now Mr. Vizda being forced onto the motorbike
Nakakatakot, ano?
between the two police officers. And as he's being driven away,
God,
we
look at
see women and children chasing after him, no doubt terrified about what would happen next. And around 20 minutes later, Your Honours, Mr. Vizda was dead, shot multiple times in the head
Oh my God.
by police officers.
Oh shit.
A witness described the scene, and Your Honours, the next slide will be a graphic image. And for reference, this is tab 77. The witness stated, quote, "The victim was lying on the street
Oh my
in
God.
handcuffs and was dead. He'd been shot in the head 7 or 8 times," end quote.
Oh my God.
The official account of this incident was recorded in a police report known as a spot report, dated the 5th of October 2016. This is tab 65. And this report, an extract of which is on the screen, stated that Mr. Vizda was killed by the police in self-defense after he snatched the firearm of a police officer while he was on a motorbike, while wearing handcuffs, and he shot at the police but missed. Your Honours, is demonstrated by the evidence in paragraph 126 of our brief. This narrative is false. Benjamin Vizda did not fight back. He was murdered. Your Honours, Project Tokang was also carried out through one-time, big-time, or OTBT operations. And these were large-scale, high-intensity police operations that often resulted in multiple murders. And one such operation took place in Bulacan, shown on our screens, between the 15th and the 16th of August 2017. In August 2017, the police made a press release regarding their recent operations, which noted that 32 people were killed by the police in simultaneous one-time, big-time operations from the 15th to the 16th of August 2017. This press release, which can be found at tab 108, is visible on our screens. In the headline, we read, quote, 32 killed, 107 arrested, as firearms, grenades, and numerous illegal drugs were seized in Bulacan, PMP, simultaneous big-time operations. And focusing, Your Honours, on the paragraph at the bottom of the screen, we see that the deaths of these 32 people were recorded as, quote, significant results, end quote, of the, quote, intensified campaign against illegal drugs, otherwise known as Project Double Barrel Reloaded, end quote. And this was essentially a reinvigorated version of Project Double Barrel, as set out in our brief footnote 37. And the press release goes on to name the 32 victims of this operation, which included 3 victims who are victims of charged incidents 28 and 29 in this case, who were murdered, consistent with the pattern of the other incidents in count 3, as set out in paragraphs 131 to 132 of our brief. Your Honours, 32 individuals killed by the police in Bulacan in a 24-hour period. You would imagine this would be a major national incident. So how did Mr. Duterte react to this shocking news? Let's hear what he said, and for reference, this is tab 147.
Yung namatay daw kanina sa Bulacan, 32, in a massive raid. Ganda yun.
Oh my God.
Makapatay lang tayo ng mga another 32 every day, then maybe we could reduce the what
He's
is.
a psychopath. My God, he's
So
a
that was the
psychopath.
president's message in response to the death of 32 Filipinos in a single day. He essentially said to the police, well done, keep going, let's kill another 32 every day.
My God, he's a psychopath.
And, Your Honours, in this context, as you would expect, the killings went on and on. This phase of one-time, big-time operations continued until around the 18th of August 2017, resulting in many more deaths. As one witness stated, quote, "It was hunting season, a killing spree," end quote. That's at tab 77. And on the evening of the 16th of August, in the midst of this killing spree, perhaps at the same time as Mr. Duterte's speech in Bulacan, a 17-year-old child named Kian de los Santos was murdered in Caloocan, the location of which is marked on our screens. And this is charged incident 30. As usual, the police claimed that Kian de los Santos shot at them and they were forced to shoot him dead in self-defense. Another victim blamed for his death. As set out in our brief, paragraph 133, this account is contradicted by CCTV footage showing police dragging the child across the ground, and other evidence shows that after pleading for his life, he was shot twice in the head. And the next slide is a graphic image, Your Honours, and that's tab 151. On our screens, we see the tragic image of the body of the 17-year-old child, Kian de los Santos. And as noted in our brief, paragraph 56, this brutal murder led to a massive public outcry across the Philippines. And in these circumstances, exceptionally, the direct perpetrators of these murders were prosecuted and they were imprisoned. And in the face of this public outcry, Mr. Duterte was forced to temporarily withdraw police from drug operations from the 10th of October to the 4th of December 2017. And this led to a reduction in the frequency of killings. In announcing this temporary withdrawal, Mr. Duterte sarcastically stated that he hoped that this would satisfy, quote, bleeding hearts and the media, end quote. And in this way, he publicly communicated that this was not a genuine effort to prevent crime, but rather a temporary attempt to placate public criticism. And less than 2 months later, Mr. Duterte decided to once again scale up operations. He ordered the PNP back into the campaign, and the killings once again intensified. And Your Honours, regrettably, children continued to be the victims of these killings. Your Honours will recall that at the very start of his presidency, Mr. Duterte gave a speech in Tondo, and we saw a part of it earlier. This is tab 127 on our list of materials, and we'll watch another portion of that speech now.
Yung mga adik ko dyan, kayo na lang ho ang pumatay. Kung anak niya, ikaw ang pumatay. Kung anak niyang adik, kayo ang pumatay para hindi masyado masakit.
My God. He's sick.
If it's someone's child, be the killer yourself. If someone's child is the addict, then you be the one to kill.
Oh my God.
Your Honours, it's worth pausing here, taking a step back and reflecting on what we are seeing and what we are hearing. This is the president of the Philippines, the commander-in-chief, the most powerful man in the Philippines. He's pointing directly at the crowd, and he is telling them to kill someone else's child. Kill them, not because they are an alleged drug lord, not even an alleged criminal, but simply because they may have an addiction to drugs. And this is an example, perhaps, of what the defense described yesterday as Mr. Duterte speaking, quote, openly from the heart, sincerely and truthfully, end quote. And that's transcript 4, page 37, lines 15 to 16. And during an earlier part of the same speech, Mr. Duterte also boasted that during his presidency, funeral homes would make a lot of money. Let's play that clip.
Sabihin ko sa inyo, itong mga panahon, itong mga araw na dadating, kung may punerarya ho kayo, kikita kayo ng husto.
Oh my God. O, tingnan yung mga tao.
Kayo ko yung mga small time na punerarya dito, doon. At sigurado hindi kayo malugi. At pag humihina na ang negosyo ninyo, sabihin ko lang sa mga polis,
Ayan.
bilis-bilisan ninyo ng konti para kumita yung tao
Oh my God.
sa negosyo nila. Ayan, sinasabi ko na sa inyo. Hindi ako nagbibiro.
So again, here's the president assuring funeral homes that if their business declines, he will, quote, tell the police, hurry up a little so people can make money from their business, end quote. And he stressed very clearly he was, quote, not joking. And as my friend said yesterday, transcript 4, page 30, lines 18 to 19, quote, for President Roddy, his word was his word, and the people knew it, end quote. In this context, to conclude, I'll focus briefly on incidents 38 and 45. As your honours know, in the course of these incidents, which occurred during 2018, on 2 separate occasions, the police detained a child aged around 14 or 15 years old. On each occasion, the police wrapped the child's head in packing tape so no one could hear them scream, and then strangled the child to death with wire. It's difficult to imagine a more terrifying end to 2 lives that had barely even begun. And these murdered children were then sold to funeral homes
Yung katabi ni
who
Kaupan.
profited from their bodies, as explained in paragraphs 142
Naginid tayo dito.
and 150 of our brief. Your Honours, dead children, police ensuring that funeral homes made money. Mr. Duterte, indeed, was not joking. Thank you, Your Honours. This concludes my presentation. I now hand over to Ms. Croft.
Ano kaya? Tagilid. Tagilid.
Merci beaucoup, Monsieur.
Judge Motors, thank you very much, Mr. Prosecutor, for your presentation. I think we are going to observe a break of 40 minutes up to 11:30 a.m. Thank you very much.
How many daw? How many minutes daw, mga kanto? Teka. How many minutes daw? 1 hour ba ang break? 1 hour ba ang break daw, mga katropa? Oh, Ma'am Shi, makaka-addict daw ang interview ng isang oo, marami din ako napanood na ganyan. Gab, 45 minutes. Okay, so that's 45, 20, 60, 9 o'clock dito. 9 o'clock, my time. Teka, kuha tayo ng ng mga side comments kahapon, ha? Ang daming side comments kahapon. So, antay tayo dito. Nakaano naman tayo dito. Teka, lagay ko lang yung notification para hindi tayo maiwan ng barko. Ayan, nawala. Ay, nawala. Yan. Kakukuhanin ko lang to. Saan na ba yun? Live. 9 p.m. 9 p.m. Ang susunod na hearing. 9 p.m. Yan, nakalagay dito. So, tama. Uy, 30 minutes. 40 minutes. Tama, 40 minutes. Oo, sa Cavite. Sabi ko nga sa inyo yung kuya ko. Ang bahay pa naman yung sa looban. Hindi naman ako nag-aano ng kuya ko, talagang tumitira tapos nagbebenta siya. Papitik-pitik lang yung hindi naman siya big time dealer, kumbaga, nagbebenta siya para may panggamit siya. Hindi ko din yan. Kahit yung mga pamangkin ko. Talaga ilang beses na nga silang pinakulong eh. Pinakulong ko sila. Tapos after 5 years nakalaya. Kalaya yung kuya ko, yung mga pamangkin ko, no? Noong bago pa sila nahuli, bago ko pa sila sinabihan sa mga kapatid ko na ipakulong nyo na yan kaysa batokwang. Noong mga time na yon, sobra doon sa looban ng kuya ko, ng ate ko, yung bahay nila, no? Pag may nagsisit-sita, may pulis, talaga tipasan sila kahit doon sa mga sapa, sa mga ilog, talagang tipasan sila kahit na 10 oras ng gabi, madaling araw, basta ganun, araw-araw merong katok. Sobrang nakakatakot, tapos yung mga pamangkin ko nagpuntahan sa Ginyangan, nagtago sa ate ko, no? Yung mga pamangkin ko naman, mga marijuana na lang, pero syempre damay-damay na yon, no? Tapos yung kuya ko nga ganun. Siya, yung baga, papetik-petiks, kasi kung tutuusin, kung big time ang kuya ko, hindi na sana hihingi na sa akin ng pera, ng pambili ng yero sa bahay niya. Ang bahay niya kalitit, kubo, butas-butas pa. Oh, 'di ba? Hindi ko inaano 'yan, sumalangit nawa ang kuya ko, no? Hindi ko hindi ko itatago na ang kuya ko gumamit ng droga, nagbenta, para meron siyang panggamit. 'Yon. Pero doon sa sa lugar namin, ang dami. Yung asawa nga ng pamangkin ko, bigla na lang naglaho. Until now, hindi na nakikita. Ayun, yun ang alam ko na, tinukhang, kumbaga, ginurgor. Hindi na yun nakita hanggang ngayon. Bigla na lang naglaho. Sobrang nakakatakot. Noong mag-e-eleksyon, tuwan-tuwa pa sa may amin, no? Duterte, no? Kasi, ang sa isip naman, ako nga sa isip ko rin, tsaka sa isip din ng mga sagambay sa amin, yung mga taga sa amin, na, ayos yan, yung tutok hangin, no? Akala nila, kakatukin lang, kukuhanin, tapos ikukulong, kumbaga, bibigyan ng yung pagkakataon, no? Na magbagong buhay, o i-rehab, hanggang sa napabalita na sunod-sunod ang mga ratratan. Hanggang sa ayun, na nung sinabi ko na lang sa ate ko na ipakulong na lang si kuya. Yun nga, pinakulong ko talaga. Tapos nung siya good naman siya sa loob kasi hindi naman, alam niyo, hindi ko pinagtatanggol yung kuya ko o hindi ko pinagtatakpan dahil kuya ko yun. Ang kuya ko kahit ganon, hindi yun nakipag-away, hindi siya nakipagsuntukan kung kanino. Wala talaga siya, hindi talaga siya napabarangay dahil nakipag-away o nagnakaw, hindi. Wala kang maano sa kuya ko. Yun nga lang, napasama siya sa maling barkada. Yun. Dahil kung sasabihin nila na ang kuya ko kumita dyan, nagkaroon ng malaking bahay, nagkaroon ng pera, ng kotse, wala. Ang bahay ng kuya ko, barong-barong, butas-butas pa ang bubong. Nahingi pa sa akin ng pambili ng yero. Yan. Ginagatungan ng mga didili si Ma'am Lenny na ini-insulto daw ni PBBM si Ma'am Lenny dahil, oh my God! Naku, pabayaan na natin yung mga Duterte, mga didili, saan ba ang aasahan natin dyan? Lahat sa kanila negative, lahat ng maganda, lahat ng positive sa ating paningin, negative sa kanila. Nahihili sila. Alam nga na maisuot ni PBBM, kulay green. Diba? Diba? Nakaka-insulto naman kay Ma'am Lenny kung ang susuot niya, kulay green na medyas. Oh, diba? Ang bobo talaga. Mga bobo talaga sila no? No. Tuwa nga si Ma'am Lenny doon sa medyas niya. No? Ako ilang beses ko pinanood yun sa totoo lang, paulit-ulit. Paulit-ulit ko talagang pinanood yun yung tribute to parang kay Ma'am Lenny, yung pagsusuot niya ng pink. Natutuwa ako doon, that's a good gesture. Oh, di ba? Na nagpapakita siya ng yung kumbaga wala ng kulay-kulay sa kanya pero sabi niya ito lang yung araw na talagang magpupolitika dahil sinuot niya yung kanyang medyas na kulay pink para kay Ma'am Lenny. Wala panis. Gusto nila suotin ni PBBM kulay green. Ngarokor pala sila eh. Teka nga, inom muna ako. Tama, inggit na lang, pikit na lang. 'Di ba? Gigil na sila. Gigil na gigil sila doon sa Pilipino kay Atty. Butuyan. Gigil na gigil ang mga DDS. Mamatay kayo sa ines. Eto kami, nag-i-enjoy pa drink na lang dito, no? Hayaan lang natin yung mga yan. So, ayun ang nangyari. No? Kasi nung time na yun, akala namin, ako hindi ko pa masyadong pero nung sinabi sa akin ng ate ko, na ganun nga ang nangyayari, ano ba desisyon? Sipin nyo, ang layo-layo ko rito ako hihingi ng desisyon. Ano ba gagawin? Sabi ko, ipakulong nyo na lang. Ipakulong nyo, samahan nyo sa presinto. No, nagkataon naman, yung mayor sa amin, kumbaga, yung mayor sa amin, malayo namin kamag-anak. Malayo namin kamag-anak yung mayor. So, sinurrender ng mga ate ko yung kuya ko sa presinto. Sinabi lang ng mga ate ko na kayo na, mayor, kayo na po bahala. Inaano na namin sa inyo yung kapatid ko. Kumbaga, yung pinagkakatiwala namin sa inyo ang buhay ng kapatid ko. Ganon. Yun. Awa naman ng Diyos, 5 taon. 5 taon. Ang kuya ko, nung dinalaw ko, Diyos ko, talagang nakiiyak talaga ako. Awang-awa ako sa kuya ko, ginalis doon sa loob. Dahil siksikan talaga sila sa loob ng selda. Parang, ano ba yun? Ang selda nila, ilan sila doon? Parang mga kulang-kulang 100 sila. Ang dami talaga. Ang dami talaga doon sa isang kwarto, tapos patong-patong yung papag. Grabe. Tapos yun nga, kinuwento ko sa inyo, yung nagpapabil ng electric pan, hindi nga pinayagan. Kasi ang dami na raw may electric pan sa loob, makisalo na lang. Tapos nagpabil ng, kumbaga ng kutsyon yung kuya ko, nagpabil ng kutsyon. Yun. Oo. Tinatapakan daw ni PBBM ang pink, sabi ng mga DDS. Naku, inggit lang sila. Hindi, inggit lang. Kahit ano pa sabihin nila, wala, panis na sila, no? Panis na. Wala dating kasama ni Harry Roque sa law firm. Di ba pinadidispar nga? Pinadidispar ata ni Roque, si Atty. Butuyan. Di ba? Yes, sa mga DDS, wala na tayong aasahang magandang salita na manggagaling sa kanila. Puro na lang sila paninira. Yan. Di ba nga si Auntie Claire, kailan ba yun? Last week? Di ba nakakapilipinyana na kulay pink? Napansin din yun ng mga reporter? Di ba? Parang is it a sign na magsasama na ang pink at saka red? Di ba? Napanood nyo ba yun? Yung interview, yung briefing ni Atty. Claire na nakasuot siya ng Pilipinyana na kulay pink? Yung pinansin din yun. Di ba? So ibig sabihin noon? Yung pagsusuot ni Auntie Claire ng pink na Pilipinyana. Kung tinatapakan sa palagay nila ni PBBM, si BP Lenny, dahil sa pagsusuot ng medyas na pink, ano naman ang masasabi nila sa pagsusuot ng Pilipinyana na kulay pink ni Auntie Claire? Ibinabalandra. Ibinabalandra ni Auntie Claire. Eto. Manigas kayo. Diba? Ay, talaga ba, Gab? Hindi ko napanood. May nakita rin ako. Hindi ko kasi pinanood yung sa Senate eh. Yung naman ni Loren Ligarda kay Marcoleta. Di ba? Bira ni Mr. Tu kay Justice Carpio. Si Justice Carpio. Nako, naman ang mga binatbat ni Bulldog kay Justice Carpio. Diyos me. Diyos ko, natuloy ng mga kaloka, di ba? Oh, di ba? Kapraso lang yung napanood ko doon sa hearing kanina. Nakita ko si Ma'am Lauren ang nagsasalita. Ayokong marinig yung boses ni ni Bullfrog. Naiirita ako sa boses niya, nakakainis siya. Feeling matalino. Mag-aral ka muna ng mapa ng Pilipinas, hanapin mo yung Kalayaan Island. My God. Tapos pinipilit ni Marcoleta na misinterpret yung kanyang i-give up. Yun, 'di ba? Yun. Oh. Nako, tigil-tigilan na nga yan. Yan, magpe-presidente yung magba-vice president daw yan ni Inday Lustay, yung Bullfrog. My goodness, hindi na sila kinalabutan. Diyos ko, Lord, wag mo na maipahintulot na magkaroon kami ng presidente at vice presidente na ganyan ng mga pag-uugali. Kawawa. Pinipilit iyan na pinamigay daw ni Carpio ang 242,000 nautical miles dahil sa UNCLOS. Yun nga pinipilit nila, kaya nga hindi na ako hindi kasi maiinis lang ako. No. Oh my goodness. Hanapin natin yan. Teka, puntahan natin. May 30 minutes pa tayo. Oo nga, 30 minutes. Teka, hanapin ko yun. Napanood ko yun Teka, nandito sa history. Hanapin ko sa history. Tanya, nandito. Teka, hanapin ko. Nandito yun Ang layo. Ang dami ko kasi pinanood kanina Nakita na naman si BP Lenny kanina tsaka si BBM, di ba? Kanina ba yan o kahapon? Nagpunta. Yung lahat ng mga mayors. Parang superstar si Ma'am Lenny, di ba? Kahapon. Ay, kahapon ba yun? Basta merong okasyon sa Malacanang Palace. Lahat ng mga mayors at vice mayors yata nandun. Ang dami nagpa-picture kay Ma'am Lenny. Teka, hanapin ko. Andito yun saan ba yun? Ang layo na. Ang dami ko napanood kasi kanina Yan. Ay, nasaan kaya yun? Ang layo. Ito. Ito yata yun Ito ba yun? Senator Marcoleta, muling nilinaw ang kanyang pahayag sa issue ng Kalayaan Island Group. Ito.
Apat na territories
Ayan.
ng...
Teka. News everywhere. Huwag mo naman akong i-copyright please. Yan. Ito yun. Ayoko sana talagang pakinggan ito. Naiinis ako dito. Gigigil ako sa kanya. Gigigil ako. Ito. Paliitin lang natin. Para hindi tayo anuhin. May paliwanag. Oo nga. 'Di ba? Ulit na nga yun Teka, tignan ko dito sa kabilang Teka lang. Teka. Papalitan ko lang tong magsuswitch lang ako ng At para makita ko yung nawala. Wala. Teka. Mali. Hindi ko makita Hindi ko pwede i-click dito Hindi ko pwedeng i-click dito sa kabilang screen kasi wala akong nakalimutan ko password. Grim! Teka, ito yata yun Hindi ko makukuha yung kay Gab na link kasi teka, tingnan ko kung makukuha ko Teka. Lipat ako dito. Oops. Ay. Hindi pwede. Teka, dito sa kabila. Ito sa kabila pwede. Ay. Tingnan ko. Yan, go to channel. Ay, mali. Hindi ko makuha. Ano ba yan? Yan, mali. What? Bakit hindi ko makuha? Teka. Eto. Ay, ito, teka. Pwede kaya to? Teka, tingnan ko kung ma-open ko dito Ayan. Teka, tingnan ko kung ma-share ko dito. Teka, kukunin ko. Kung ma-share ko dito. Share screen. Saan kaya yan? Committee. Committee in National Defense and Security. Ito ba yun? Ito. Ito. Ay! Ano to? Ay! Bakit ganon? Teka lang. Ayan. Teka, ito ba yun? Ay. Ito. Ang haba. 3 hours pala to eh. Hanapin ko sana kung saan banda eh. Teka. Ito yung kay Lauren. Teka. Ito walang sound. Kamali. Ito. Eh. Ito ba yun? Oo, teka. Mali. Teka, parang hindi ko nakita. Ewan sa'yo. Ito ba yun? Teka, ito na lang, anuhin natin. Ang haba nun eh. Sa One News. Ay, nawala. Teka. Teka, dito na lang muna tayo sa muling nilinaw ang kanyang pahayag sa issue ng Kalayaan Island Group. Teka, eto. Yata yung paliwanag niya dito eh. Teka. Yan. Ito yun. 12500. At Ace of Spade. Uy! Sino yun? Yung Ace of Spade. May Ace of Spade dito. Sino yun? Yan. Teka, ito. Teka ba? Pupuntahan ko yan ha. Saglit lang. Ito.
Spratly Islands. Ng Spratly Islands are already territories of the Philippines. Simply because we occupied them. Tayo nag-occupy na dito eh. And somebody is suggesting na sinasabi ko raw, I'm trying to remove the KIG from the territory of this country.
Talaga naman eh.
By presenting a splice narrative.
Oh, splice!
Ito yung mabigat dito eh. No less than...
Excuse me? We watch it live. Hello? We all watch it live. Lahat kami na-shock nung sinabi mo na i-give up na lang yung Kalayaan Island na yan. Sinungaling talaga eh, no? Kapag ka talaga kapatid ng, katropa ng mga magnanakaw, sinungaling. Na magkatropa talagang magnanakaw at mga sinungaling. Di ba? Diyos mo.
Senator of the Republic did this. We'll come to this in proper time. Gusto ko lamang paalam na
You're disgusting.
alam niyo si Tomas Cloma was mentioned in the arbitral award only in pages 250 and 251. Sinasabi ng tribunal, a certain Filipino and his associates had some activities in this practice, sabi niya. Yun lang, na-mention. Doon lang siya na-mention. And parang nagkataon lang na nakarating sa Ito Aba and nagkaroon lang ng konti sigurong kung ano-ano pinag-
Ang daming ano nito, no? Ang dami, ayaw siya mag-stick doon sa topic. Lagi siyang merong isinisingit. Yung comparison, parang ganon, alam niyo yon. Yung kapag nagkukwento, merong lagi siyang segue. 'Di ba? 'Di ba? 'Di ba? Tapos ngayon, eto nililiwanag niya na in-splice daw yung ano, yung kalayaan, yung kanyang sinabi. Hindi naman daw niya sinabi na pinamigay. 'Di ba? Teka, hindi ko kasi makuha dito eh.
Nila doon. That was the only time that this Thomas Cloma was mentioned in the arbitration tribunal. So baka po tinuturo sa Command and General Staff Course.
Your Honor, as I said, sir, we only have modules not including the history, Your Honor.
So yung pinagsasabi ni Senator Ping are all distortions.
Ano daw?
I have to find. I have to find out, Your Honor.
It's borne out by our TSN. May transcript po kami.
Probably in the old CGSC classes in the 80s or 90s, Your Honor. There's a part of history, but I can only surmise on that, Your Honor.
So, sinasabi ko lang po, ako kailanman hindi ko sinabi, I'm trying to remove the KIG from the territory of this country.
Sinungaling talaga eh, no? Napakasinungaling. Napakasinungaling. 'Di ba? Teka, hindi ko kasi maiano dito eh. Teka, tingnan ko ha kung makukuha ko dito sa kabila. Teka. Hindi ko kasi ma-pick up kasi hindi ko alam yung ano. Hindi ko kasi alam yung password dito sa monitor. Ay, mali. Dito siguro. Ito. Yan. Ano kaya to? 125. Teka, hanapin ko ha. Sa 125. Ito. 125. 125 ano? Yan nga yun. Ayan na nga. Yan na nga yung sinasabi ni ano. Yan na nga yun. Eto. Teka ha. Tanggalin ko to isa. Tanggalin ko. Tanggalin ko yan. Teka. Tingnan natin kung maisa-share natin yung eto. Asa na?
Contemporary security challenges, strategic communication, OPART, and joint and combined operations.
So let me be clarified. Anong pangalan niya? Hindi ko po makita yung pangalan niyo. Will you please identify yourself?
Brigadier General Alexander Gigantone, sir.
General, am I now made to understand that Thomas Cloma is not a part of this Command and General Staff Course?
As I'm aware of, sir, none, sir. But I have to check with the course director himself, sir. And I'll get back to you, sir.
Yes, because I'd like to inform you that Senator Ping mentioned this during our hearing. And Captain Pilar responded quite quickly that he knew also Thomas Cloma. At hindi siya, kinonfirm niya yung sinasabi ni Senator Lacson because he did not object to the narratives that was fed to us. Sinabi niya, Thomas Cloma is the one who discovered Spratly Islands. And as the discoverer, he owns it. So dinonate niya sa Pilipinas and this was formalized by President Marcos Sr. As a matter of fact, sabi niya, this was also formalized by the arbitral ruling. He was referring to the 2012 arbitration in the South China Sea arbitration.
Yes, sir.
So wala ito sa course ninyo?
We don't have military history module in our CGSC.
Bakit kaya niya sinabi na, did you take up your Command General Staff Course at Port Bonifacio? Sabi niya. Sabi naman...
Ito ba yon? Ito yon?
Captain Pilar, no sir, I took it at the at Camp Crame. So parang nagkakaalaman sila na mayroon talagang Command and General Staff Course. And do you know kanya Tomas Cloma? Yes sir. Doon niya in-introduce na si Tomas Cloma is the one who discovered Spratly Islands. So
Sir,
walang course na ganito.
Wala po, Your Honor. As of now, Your Honor, probably in the past there's a military history, but I can only
I'm
surmise.
very interested in this because it should be corrected kung talagang nandun si Tomas Cloma. It should not be distorted. Tomas Cloma is a seafarer. He's not a discoverer. In 1956, he proclaimed a freedom land. It's like a notice of claim. That was in 1956. And several countries objected to that. United Kingdom, the United States, Australia, Japan, China, and the Philippines. That is the history. Alam niyo kung bakit nag-object ang mga countries na ito? Because at that time, in 1956, Spratly Islands is not considered terra nullius. Meaning, hindi siya undiscovered, hindi siya unoccupied. As a matter of fact, in 1897, Great Britain already notified the world by issuing a notice of claim. After that, when that claim was abandoned, France took over. Until in 1933, Japan served a notice of claim copy furnishing the United States of America. We were then a colony of America. That was in 1933. And Japan called the Spratly Islands
I don't
Sinangunto.
know this history.
Tayo tinawag nating Kalayaan Island Group. I'm trying to emphasize this, General. Ang dami
Sorry guys, hindi ko talaga naiintindihan yung pati si Clomo, Tomas Cloma. Hindi ko matandaan kung napag-aralan ba namin yan. Baka absent ako. Ito ba 'yon?
kasing ang daming mga disinformation and misinformation eh.
Dapat talaga to, pagdaan na sa debate para malaba kung sino talaga nagsasabi ng totoo, no? Tuloy na sana yung debate para ma-educate tayo, especially me. Oh my God. Oh.
Paano nilang sasabihin na somebody donated this to the government? But this is not the whole point now eh. Alam ninyo, 4 na territories ng ating Spratly Islands, are already territories of the Philippines. Simply because we occupied them. Tayo nag-occupy na dito eh. And somebody is suggesting na sinasabi ko raw,
ayaw manood ni Meme. Kasi nandito na si Bulldog. Teka, titignan lang natin kung ano pinagsasabi ni Bulldog, Meme, ha? Wait lang. Oh my God.
I'm trying to remove the KIG from the territory of this country by presenting a splice narrative. Ito yung mabigat dito eh. No less than a senator of the republic did this. We'll come to this in proper time. Gusto ko lamang paalam na
Talagang dinidepensahan niya ang China eh, no? In every way na kaya niya. Kakaloka. Okay.
alam niyo si Tomas Cloma was mentioned in the arbitral award only in pages 250 and 251. Sinasabi ng tribunal, a certain Filipino and his associates had some activities in this Spratly, sabi niya. Yun lang, na-mention. Doon lang siya na-mention. And parang nagkataon lang na nakarating sa Ito Aba and nagkaroon lang ng konti sigurong kung ano-ano pinagagawa nila doon. That was the only time that this Tomas Cloma was mentioned in the arbitration tribunal. So baka po tinuturo sa Command and General Staff Course.
Magkano kaya ang bayad dito? Magkano kaya binayad dito sa kanya?
Your Honor, as I said, sir, we only have modules not including the history, Your Honor.
So yung pinagsasabi ni Senator Ping are all distortions.
Oh my God. Sasagot ba rito si Senator Ping? Hindi ko kasi pinanood to. Nakatutok kasi tayo sa ano. Oy, malapit na mag-ano ha. Malapit na dun sa ano. Malapit na mag-start ulit.
I have to find out, Your Honor.
It's borne out by our TSN. May transcript po kami.
Probably in the old CGSC classes in the 80s or 90s, Your Honor. There's a part of history, but I can only surmise on that, Your Honor.
So, sinasabi ko lang po, ako kailanman hindi ko sinabi, I'm trying to remove the KIG from the territory of this country. I never, not even a suggestion. Alam po ninyo, it was misquoted several times here. When we were meeting at the CA, I was only trying to emphasize two things. The difficulty of plotting the West Philippine Sea because of several obstacles. There are 3 articles of the UNCLOS that will be contradicted if we will encircle West Philippine Sea with the KIG. Pero hindi ko po problema yon. Problema na ng NAMRIA kung paano natin gagawin. I hope we can help NAMRIA plot the map of the West Philippine Sea in our lifetime. Pero hindi ko kailanman sinadjust. Sinabi ko lang, napakahirap talaga kako. Alam mo, after 14 years, you may want to look back.
Napakalapit mo naman, Grib. Grabe. Talaga, he will do his best para talaga depensahan. Pero guys, hindi niya raw pinamimigay. Hindi niya raw sinabi yon na ay, may ambulance, ang ingay. Ano ba yan? Bilisan naman, ay, fire truck pala. Ang ingay. Dali na, ang bagal. Kakainis mo tong fire truck na to. Kaka-impyerno. Oh my God.
At Administrative Order number 29, which was issued by President Pinoy in 2012. At that time, he already instructed the NAMRIA.
Ako rin, ayoko nga itong pinakinggan eh. Kanina nakita ko na to eh. Sila daw ni Senator Lauren, hindi ko nga pinanood, naiinis ako sa kanya. Si Meme, ayaw di manood. Nandito daw si Bulldog eh. Mamaya na siya magpapakita.
And the Department of Foreign Affairs to prepare the necessary maps and charts with coordinates and submit them to the United Nations and notify all relevant international organizations, including the International Hydrographics Organization, for the purpose of plotting a West Philippine Sea map as the western side of our country. I was telling them, maybe, I just said maybe, the difficulty lies in the several obstacles that they will encounter. Kasi nga nasa high seas na lahat yun eh. I'm not talking about territory. I'm only talking about the West Philippine Sea. How we can encircle that part of the ocean, most of which is already the high seas. Kasi nagbiro lang ako. It was a hypothetical statement when I said, well, you want to give up the KIG para ma-encircle mo. But that was...
You want to give up? Ano, nagjo-joke ka lang?
Highly hypothetical. It was not even a suggestion. Sabi ko...
Suggestion daw? Hindi rin suggestion. Pakibigay nga sa akin yung link noon. Nung sinabi niya yon. Hindi ko na makita kung saan ko na... Ano yun eh, mamaya hanapin ko. Yung sinabi niya. Ha? Suggestion daw? Direct yung sinabi mo, oy!
Ko pa nga eh.
Ay pamigay na, i-give up na. Sinungaling talaga tong kokak na to. Sinungaling. Napakasinungaling. Diyos ko.
Kung pwede lang nating ilipat sana sa iisi natin, but you cannot do that. Only God knows.
Oh my gosh. Shut up. Oh my gosh. Si Mami S, ayaw na rin panood. Tanggalin na natin to. Malapit naman na. In 5 minutes, mga katropa, tama na to. Marami nang naiirita. Si Memi din nag-message sa akin, Mami. Ayoko muna man lang. Diyos si Marcoleta. Tanggalin na natin to. Nonsense. Boyset. Oh my gosh. Grabe. Ayan na. Teka lang. Nawala tuloy. Humiwalay tuloy yung aking ano. Teka lang, mali. Ayan. Mali. Teka lang, wait. Malapit na mag-start. Saglit lang. Teka lang ha. Wait. Nawala kasi yung ano ko eh. Eto. Teka, may nag-share sa akin. Yung ano statement na sinabi niya. Suggestion only. Oh my gosh. Teka lang. Wait lang. Anin ko lang to. Kuhanin ko lang yung channel. Yan. Andito na tayo. Dito ko na lang ipapakita kasi Teka, dito ko na lang papakita kasi ayaw anuhin eh. Ito. Yan. Ito, yung kay Marcoleta. In-splice daw to. Yan. Ito, yung kay Marcoleta. In-splice daw to. Teka, ito na. Teka. Yan.
Ang gawin natin po para madali, i-give up natin yung KIG.
Oh.
Ang gawin natin po para madali, i-give up natin yung...
Para madali daw, i-give up na lang daw. Saan dong banda ang in-splice? Magandang gabi, Sir Ede. Magandang gabi po. Yan, paulit-ulit. So, saan ditong banda ang na-misinterpret natin siya at saan ditong banda ang in-splice? Lahat naman tayo, napanood natin to.
KIG. Ang gawin natin po para madali, i-give up natin yung KIG. Ang gawin natin po para madali...
I-give up na lang daw para madali. I-give up na lang yung KIG. Tapos sasabihin niya, in-splice daw ni Ping Lacson. Si Ping Lacson kasi ay naglabas eh. Ayun na mga katropa. Teka. Teka lang, wait lang. Ayan, sorry. Ayan. Kaya nga, sinasabi niya suggestion lang daw. Kaso daw, in-splice daw. Kasi kay Senator Ping Lacson Facebook lumabas yun eh. Kaya si Ping Lacson ang napag-initan niya na nag-splice. Sabi naman ni Senator Ping Lacson, hindi nga ako marunong mag-splice eh. Ano ba yun? Paano ba yun? Diba? Lahat tayo napanood natin to ng live na sinabi niya. Diba? Lahat tayo nakapanood dito ng live nung sinabi niya to. Tapos sasabihin niya, in-splice, na misinterpret siya, na suggestion, direct yung sinabi mo eh. I-give up na. I-give up.
I-give up natin yung KIG. Ang gawin natin po para madali, i-give up natin yung KIG. Ang gawin natin po para madali, i-give up natin yung KIG.
Kung ako...
Talaga ang sinungaling, katropa ng mga magnanakaw. Yan kasi napapala. Sinungaling pa. Katropa talaga ng mga magnanakaw ang sinungaling. In-splice daw to. Diba? Wala tayong magagawa. Talagang ganyan eh. Nandiyan si Dennis. Teka, kala ko busy pa si ano eh. Teka, nandiyan na ba? Teka. Nasaan? Parang hindi ko nakita. Ayun. Marhay na banggi. Asan na? Andito rin si Sir Eddie, nakita ko. Ayun. Yan, magandang hapon po. Diba? Napakasinungaling. Buong nation na nakapanood at nakarinig na sinabi niya. Pinalalabas tayo mga bingot. Bungol. Alam niyo ba yung bungol? Sa amin, kasi palagi pag nagagalit ang lola ko, sabihin, bungol ka ba? yung bungol bingi. Ano tayo? Parang pinalalabas tayo mga bungol tayong lahat dito. Not na misinterpret lang daw at in-splice lang daw. Kawawa si Senator Ping eh. Senator Ping kasi ang inano niya doon kasi Senator Ping ang nung unang-una sa kanyang Facebook. Kaya siya napag-initan niya, Senator Ping. Oh, ang sabi naman ni Senator Ping, paano ba yung mag-splice? Hindi nga ako marunong nun eh. O ayan, meme, halika natin. Tanggal ko na si Marcoleta. Nakakaloka. Nakakaloka. Mariosep. Di ba? Pinalalabas pa tayo ng bungol at sinungaling. Samantalang siya naman talaga nagsabi, nag-give up. Kaya nga lahat tayo nasyak dun eh. Ako nasyak talaga ako nung sinabi niya yun. Parang mag-give up yung isla na may mga tao dun. May mga nakatira dun. Diba? My gosh. Kakaloka. Kung sino man na nag-splice noon, ha? Mahiya kayo kay Marcoleta. Mahiya naman kayo. Diba? Nag-ano kayo ng splice video eh, para mapasama si Marcoleta. Hindi naman niya sinabi yun. Oh. Diba? Oh. Huwag kayo, tatakbong vice president yan. Katandem ng buang. Nakakaloka. Teka nga, i-refresh ko to. Bakit ba ganito? Nag-start na ba? Refresh ko nga. Teka nga mga katropa, re-refresh ko lang. Refresh. Teka, refresh tayo, refresh. Ito na yun. Hindi pa nag-start. Hindi pa talaga nag-start. Kaya nga di ba? Dapat talaga iniimbitahan doon ng Senado as resource person si Marcoleta. Si Justice Carpio. Bakit ba hindi nila iniimbitahan para maging resource person nila? Si Justice Carpio dapat nandoon. Nandun ba? Hindi ko kasi napanood kasi. Basta nandun si Marcoleta nagsasalita, ayaw ko talaga manood. Kasi dapat iniimbitahan nila si Tariela, si Justice Carpio, imbitahan nila lahat. Si Atty. Batumbakal, powerhouse. 'Di ba? Hindi yung mga military lang na hindi makakasagot sa kanya ng direktahan, 'di ba? At least si Tariela kumakasa. Tsaka si Batumbakal, tsaka si Justice Carpio, no? Ganun sana. Bakit ba hindi nila iniimbita? Imbitahan nila dapat. Huwag nilang isubo yung mga hindi makakaporma kay Marcoleta. Feeling genius pa naman si Marcoleta. Lagi siya tama. May tama. Oy guys, paano ba malalaman kung totoo yung pearl? Saan ba yun? Para kung magla-live selling dito. Kaya nga, bunso. Nako, Leia, yan nga. Pag nag-ano yan, Marcoleta at saka si Inday Sayad, paano na? Paano na? Pag nag-tandem yung dalawa na yan, Diyos ko, kawawa naman. Yun, baka daw nagpapasa sila ng bill na pukpukin ang NAMRIA. Ano yung NAMRIA? Sabi sa ng saan ko para makita. Okay. Yan naman gusto ni Marcoleta, di ba? Paano rin masasabing atin? Yung party na yon. Saan daw ba banda na nagsasabi atin yun? Yun. Okay. Maiba tayo mga tropa. Paano ba nalalaman na tulay ang pearl? Maiba naman tayo para humupa yung dugo ko bumaba ng konti. Kasi may nagregalo sa akin 'to, nakita ko lang nung naglilinis ako doon ng ano, ng ang aking drawer, nakita ko 'to. Niregalo kasi 'to sa akin noon, matagal na. Parang 40th birthday ko pa. Diyos ko, 17 years ago. Ngayon ko lang nakita. Ito, oh, paano ba malalaman na tunay ang pearl? Yan, oh. Tapos, itong ano naman niya, itong pakaw niya, guys. Ayan. Ayan na. Umpisa na, mga katropa. Teka. Ayan na.
Please be seated. Veuillez vous asseoir.
Maintenant, je vais...
I will now give the floor to the prosecutor. Please proceed please continue with your presentation.
Who's next?
President, Your Honours. My name is Robin Croft, and I will address two topics today. First, I will present on the contextual elements of crimes against humanity. And second, I will set out some of the prosecution's evidence on Mr. Duterte's individual criminal responsibility for the crimes alleged in this case. Turning first then to the contextual elements. Your Honours, the contextual elements of crimes against humanity are established in this case because, first, there was an attack against the civilian population in the Philippines. The attack targeted civilians alleged to be involved in drug-related crimes and other forms of criminality. The Rome Statute crimes alleged in this case formed part of that attack. Second, the attack was widespread and systematic. And third, the attack was carried out pursuant to or in furtherance of a state or organisational policy. This policy was to neutralise alleged criminals in the Philippines through violent crimes, including murder. The evidence establishing the contextual elements are set out in paragraphs 71 to 86 of our pre-confirmation brief. In relation to the requirement of an attack, our case is that from at least the 1st of November 2011 to the 16th of March 2019, the Davao Death Squad, or DDS, and/or the National Network carried out an attack which targeted civilians alleged to be criminals. Your Honours have heard from my colleagues how from 2011 until 2016, the attack was concentrated in Davao City. Then, in 2016, when Mr. Duterte became president, he and his co-perpetrators expanded the attack nationwide. They used the national network to do this, which, as Mr. Jeremy has explained, was comprised of state actors, such as law enforcement personnel, as well as non-police assets and hitmen. Your Honours, the locations of the murders contained in counts 1 to 3 of our document containing the charges are indicated on the map on your screens. They include 76 murders, which themselves satisfy the threshold of multiple acts making up a course of conduct. However, as Mr. Nichols has noted, the crimes in count 1 to 3 are representative and emblematic of a larger killing campaign. And the prosecution relies on a range of evidence to establish that the attack was made up of thousands of killings and other violent crimes under Article 7.1. This evidence includes datasets and the statements of documentation actors, the evidence of insider witnesses, expert analysis, and the admissions of Philippine state agencies in their public reporting. I will take your honours through some of this evidence now. During Mr. Duterte's mayoral period, hundreds of civilians alleged to be criminals were killed in Davao City. On your screens is a chart with data on extrajudicial killings in Davao based on public reporting. The data is recorded at tab 116. It shows that between 2012 and 2015, there are at least 274 extrajudicial killings in Davao City.
This data is corroborated by DDS insider witnesses. Several DDS witnesses say that they each killed hundreds of alleged criminals while with the DDS. Your Honours can see on this slide quotes from one DDS witness. They estimate that, I quote, between 1,500 and 2,000 people, end quote, are buried at Laoud Quarry. The quarry was only one of several places that the DDS dumped bodies in and around Davao. That's at tab 37. This witness said that they personally killed hundreds of people. They described their job as the DDS as being, quote, just to kill small criminals, petty criminals. Out of the almost 300 people that I have killed, I never actually got to kill a drug lord, end quote. That's at tab 34. This witness's words make it clear that the target of the attack was people alleged to be criminals in Davao. Your Honours, another DDS witness who also killed hundreds of people said that the DDS targeted, I quote, suspected criminals in Davao City, including shabu users and pushers, end quote. That's at tab 58. Your Honours, as you have heard previously, Mr. Duterte has himself publicly admitted that he killed around 1,700 people while he was mayor of Davao City. I quote, they say I killed 700, they undercounted, around 1,700, end quote. That's at tabs 10, 10.1, 10.2. This evidence, the data collected by independent organisations, the statements of insiders on the hundreds of people that they have each killed, and Mr. Duterte's own admission of having killed 1,700 people while mayor of Davao all show that the attack was widespread in the mayoral period. And the attack continued to be widespread after Mr. Duterte became president, when it expanded across the country. The victimisation expanded, with the hundreds killed during the mayoral period becoming thousands in the presidential period. Your Honours can see a map of the Philippines on the slide. The colours which will emerge show the locations and density of the killings in the anti-illegal drug campaign. Purple dots indicate an area with 1 to 10 killings, while yellow indicates 500 killings. This is how the killings progressed throughout the presidential period.
Oh my God, look at that.
Your Honours, this map is based on data collected by an independent organisation which recorded at least 5,823 anti-drug killings during the presidential period. This data is recorded at tab 104. The data shows that the attack during the presidential period was widespread. As Your Honours can see from the map, it occurred across the country. It occurred over multiple years, and thousands of civilians were killed. Mr. Duterte's administration effectively admitted to the large volume of the attack. They admitted that thousands of individuals were killed in anti-drug operations while Mr. Duterte was president. For example, in the Duterte administration's 2017 year-end report, which you can see on your screens, the administration admitted that 3,967 drug personalities died in anti-drug operations in the first year and a half of Mr. Duterte's presidency. That's at tab 106. Similarly, the Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency, or PDEA, admitted that 5,281 drug personalities died in anti-drug operations in the first 2.5 years of Mr. Duterte's presidency. This is at tab 98. These admissions corroborate the widespread nature of the attack. They show that thousands of individuals were killed. Your Honours, in addition to being widespread, the attack was also systematic from its origins and throughout the charge period. The features of DDS operations demonstrate this systematicity during the mayoral period. And these features can be found in our brief at paragraphs 35 to 36 and 88 to 98. Insider witnesses described how time and time again, killing operations followed the system set out on the screen. The same hierarchical structure was followed. As Mr. Nichols explained, the orders flowed from Mr. Duterte at the top, through a combination of other co-perpetrators, to the handler of the relevant DDS team, and finally to the physical perpetrators at the bottom. The DDS teams composed of police and non-police assets and hitmen who carried out the killings. The features of the killings were also often markedly similar. The identity or whereabouts of the victim was provided to the DDS by an informant. The perpetrators would frequently arrive to or flee the crime scene by motorcycle. They shot or stabbed their victims at close range. The victims were targeted on the basis that they were alleged to be drug users, pushers, or other criminals. And the DDS received a sum of reward money for each kill. When the attack expanded during the presidential period, it continued to be systematic because it remained highly organised, planned, and coordinated. Similar systems to the one I've just described in Davao were deployed during Mr. Duterte's presidency to implement the killings. Your Honours can see some of those features listed on your screens. As in Davao, victims were targeted on the basis that they were alleged to be drug users, pushers, or other criminals. The process for killing the targets was often markedly similar. First, the victims were identified by state actors as targets and listed. As Mr. Jeremy has outlined, high-value targets were often listed on the PRRD list. The targets of barangay clearance operations were often listed on local drug lists, such as local police station lists. Second, targets were killed in the context of so-called law enforcement operations. Police often tried to legitimise the operations, so they would stage a nanlaban or fight-back scenario to make them to appear to have been in self-defence. They would also plant evidence, such as drugs and guns, on the victims' bodies. And third, as in Davao, police and those working with them were often paid reward money per kill. Your Honours, these killings were not random or coincidental. Quite the opposite. Targets were pre-identified, listed, and then subject to operations based on that list. This clearly demonstrates the systematicity of the attack. Your Honours, the last point I would like to make about the attack relates to the evidence of an expert witness who specialises in political violence in the Philippines. This expert analysed data relating to armed encounters between the PMP and supposedly armed suspects. He compared data from before Mr. Duterte's presidency to during. And based on this comparison, he found that in the first 25 months of Mr. Duterte's presidency, the number of suspects killed by police increased by 590% across the Philippines. And that finding is at tab 68. Your Honours have heard Mr. Jeremy speak about Bulacan, a province immediately north of Metro Manila, where Mr. Duterte praised the killing of 32 civilians in police operations in 24 hours. The expert witness found that in Bulacan, police killings rose by 1,600% when Mr. Duterte became president. And that's at tab 121. The expert also compared data on Bulacan Police's use of deadly force to other countries and cities across the world. He used the metric of police killings per 100,000 population. The chart on your screens shows this comparison, which is at tab 121 again. The data on Bulacan is orange, while other countries and cities are blue.
Oh my God, ang dami para sa
The orange
Bulacan.
bar on the left shows police use of deadly force in Bulacan before Mr. Duterte became president.
Cavite kaya.
You can see that with a fatality rate of over 1, it was already comparatively high. The orange bar on the right shows the dramatic increase in killings in Bulacan by police after Mr. Duterte became president. The expert concluded that, quote, the only plausible explanation for such an extreme ratio is a widespread policy of extrajudicial
Oh my
executions,
God, ang dami.
end quote. That's also tab 121. Your Honours, this leads us to the policy requirement for crimes against humanity in Article 7. Your Honours, the attack in this case was carried out pursuant to a policy to neutralise alleged criminals through violent crimes, including murder. The policy was also known as the Davao Formula or model. Your Honours have heard about the origins of the policy in Davao City and how it was implemented by the local executive government. Mr. Nichols explained how Mr. Duterte, when Mayor of Davao City, established the Davao Death Squad to carry out the policy and kill criminals. The evidence establishing the state or organisational policy in this case is set out at paragraphs 77 to 84 of our brief. As the policy and the common plan were both to neutralise alleged criminals via violent crimes, there is some overlap between the evidence on each. I will set out some of that evidence now while discussing the policy, and then some later while discussing the common plan. The evidence includes Mr. Duterte's many public statements and speeches outlining the policy. It also includes the Command Memorandum Circular, which Mr. Jeremy mentioned earlier, witness accounts, speeches and statements by other co-perpetrators, the high-level of coordination between state actors. Sorry, Your Honours. I will start with Mr. Duterte's own speeches. Your Honours, Mr. Duterte made no secret of the policy, as is shown by the references in our brief to his many speeches outlining the policy. He made these speeches as Mayor of Davao, as a presidential candidate, and then as President of the Philippines. One example of a speech that Mr. Duterte made as Mayor was at a meeting on peace and order in Davao in October 2015. And that is tab 13. Thank you.
The 8 hours yung mga nagdi-distribute ng droga sa Boulevard. Giving you 48 hours. Pag nakita ko kayo, papatayin ko kayo dito.
These are Mr. Duterte's own words. I quote, "I will kill you. That's the only formula that worked in my city." End quote. That is tab 133.
Prangka-prangkahan talaga. I will kill you. Kayong na mayor ako ngayon, presidente, yun din ang, that's the only formula that worked in my city.
Your Honours will recall that yesterday, Mr. Nichols played a series of Mr. Duterte's presidential campaign speeches. I want to take a moment to reflect on some of the key features of those speeches, which are at tabs 8, 12, and 14. First, Mr. Duterte frequently said that if elected as president, he would stop drugs and crime in the Philippines in 3 to 6 months. He frequently referenced his experience in Davao, where he admitted that he had killed criminals. He said that if elected, he would order the military and police to do the same nationwide. And he expressly stated that this would entail killing. Your Honours, Mr. Duterte's speeches make it clear that there was a policy to neutralise alleged criminals by violent means, including murder. And Mr. Duterte was not the only member of the Common Plan who disseminated the policy through public speeches and statements. In this video at tab 9, co-perpetrator Mr. De La Rosa addresses a crowd of self-confessed drug addicts in Bacolod City and urges them to kill drug lords and burn their houses.
But on Thursday, National Police Chief Ronald De La Rosa's rhetorics were far from toned down, as he told hundreds of self-confessed drug users and pushers in Bacolod City to kill drug lords.
Oh my God.
Mr. De La Rosa made this speech on the 25th of August, 2016. At the time, he was the chief of the Philippine National Police. Your Honours, the existence of the policy is also shown by the police directive which Mr. Jeremy spoke about earlier, Command Memorandum Circular number 16 of 2016. This is at tab 112. As Your Honours have heard, the day after Mr. Duterte became president, he appointed his longtime friend and colleague from Davao, his co-perpetrator, Mr. Ronald De La Rosa, as chief of the Philippine National Police. On the same day, Mr. De La Rosa formalised the anti-drugs component of the policy by issuing this directive to the 180,000 police officers under his command. The circular directed police to pursue the neutralisation of illegal drug personalities. As Mr. Jeremy has outlined, the evidence shows that within law enforcement, neutralise meant and was understood as meaning to kill. Your Honours, the Command Memorandum Circular shows there was a policy to neutralise through violent crimes such as murder. I will now turn to part 2 of my presentation on Mr. Duterte's individual criminal responsibility. The prosecution's evidence on this is set out at paragraphs 5 to 70 of our brief. The prosecution alleges that Mr. Duterte indirectly co-perpetrated the crimes, ordered and/or induced the crimes, and/or aided and abetted the crimes. Today, in the interest of time, I will focus on indirect co-perpetration, and we rely on our brief for the other modes of liability. Your Honours, Mr. Duterte is an indirect co-perpetrator of the alleged crimes because, first, he agreed to a common plan to neutralise alleged criminals. Second, he and his fellow co-perpetrators jointly controlled a structure of power, namely the Davao Death Squad and the National Network, which they used to pursue the common plan. Third, Mr. Duterte made an essential contribution to the crimes within the framework of the common plan. And fourth, he did this with the requisite intent. Your Honours can see on your screens an excerpt from paragraph 4 of our document containing the charges. This sets out the scope of the common plan. The plan was to neutralise alleged criminals in the Philippines including those perceived or alleged to be associated with drug use, sale, or production through violent crimes, including murder. As Mr. Nichols has explained, Mr. Duterte and his co-perpetrators agreed to this plan in Davao City. Photos of the co-perpetrators in Davao City are displayed on your screens. They're a combination of trusted police officers, an individual from Mr. Duterte's mayoral office, an officer from the National Bureau of Investigation in Davao Region, and a lawyer who acted on behalf of certain members of the Davao Death Squad. In 2016, when Mr. Duterte became president, the members of the Common Plan remained largely the same. They were joined by a further two individuals, a senior police officer and a longtime colleague of the group from Davao City, who had worked with the DDS before the jurisdictional period. I will take your honours through some of the evidence which shows both the scope of the Common Plan and the co-perpetrators' agreement to it. In the interest of time, I will address some co-perpetrators and we rely on our brief for the rest. That's at paragraphs 9 to 23 of our brief.
Lagot.
On your screens is a photograph of Mr. Ronald De La Rosa. When Mr. De La Rosa was Davao City Police Chief, he developed Tokhang operations. As your honours have heard from Mr. Jeremy, Tokhang was a blueprint for police to implement killings later in the presidential period. When he was announced as Mr. Duterte's chosen PMP chief in May 2016, Mr. De La Rosa gave this interview, which is at tab 101. It shows that he wholeheartedly agreed to the Common Plan.
Patayan sa drugs. Patayan talaga ito sa drugs. Kaya kayong mga drug lord dyan, humanda na kayo at talagang sasagasaan ko kayo.
Yabang pa more.
On this slide is a photo of Isidro La Peña. Like Mr. De La Rosa, Mr. La Peña was well known to Mr. Duterte because he too had worked as Davao City Police Chief.
Itong patay na to eh. Yan ba yun?
In his case, from 1996 until 1998. In 2016, Mr. Duterte appointed Mr. La Peña as Director General of the Philippine Drug Enforcement Agency, or PDEA. PDEA is the lead anti-drug enforcement agency in the Philippines. 2 days after Mr. La Peña took his oath, he gave a speech to his PDEA subordinates. There is an excerpt from that speech on the slide. Quote, "Under then Mayor, we implemented strict law enforcement against illegal drug activities in Davao City. The President wants to replicate and expand what is being done in Davao. And that is precisely what I intend to do."
Sure.
End quote. That's tab 101. Also like Mr. De La Rosa, Vicente Danao was Davao City Police Chief during the mayoral period, in his case from 2013 to 2016. In November 2018, he was appointed Police Chief of Manila Police District, and he told reporters, quote, "If I discover anyone involved in drugs, especially those who distribute or just throw them around, son of a bitch, I will go after you, goddamn. I will kill you. Blatantly, I am saying that. Sons of bitches." End quote. That's tab 96. When Mr. Duterte became president, he appointed Vitaliano Aguirre II as Secretary of Justice. Mr. Aguirre has also publicly acknowledged the Common Plan and his agreement to it as a member of Mr. Duterte's administration.
Well, which do you want? We build first, do we build the prison facilities first, or do we go against these people? Choose. If you're in the Philippines, we will choose to kill these drug lords.
Quote, "In the Philippines, we will choose to kill these drug lords." End quote. That's tab 125. Your Honours, these speeches of co-perpetrators show both the scope of the common plan and those co-perpetrators' agreement to it. Your Honours, the next element of indirect co-perpetration is control of a structure of power. In the mayoral period, Mr. Duterte and his co-perpetrators controlled the DDS, which they used to pursue the common plan. There is a diagram of the DDS hierarchy on your screens. As the mayor of Davao City, Mr. Duterte sat at the apex of the formal and city structures. The law gave him formal operational, supervision and control over the police in Davao City. In addition to this de jure power, insider witnesses spoke about his de facto power over police and the DDS structure. Under Mr. Duterte were a combination of co-perpetrators from the Davao City Police Office and the Mayor's Office. Together with Mr. Duterte, they controlled the DDS teams beneath them. They controlled the will of the DDS perpetrators through a range of mechanisms. And these are set out in paragraph 38 of our brief and include threats to kill and actual killing. To illustrate this control, there are quotes from one witness on your screen. This witness said that when he was first told to kill, he did not want to. But, I quote, "I felt like I didn't have any other choice but to follow their orders. Duterte is the most powerful person in Davao City, and you had to do what he wanted. It wasn't possible not to not obey his command." End quote. This is tab 51. When Mr. Duterte became president, the co-perpetrators continued to control a structure of power. One of the first things that Mr. Duterte did with his new presidential powers was to appoint his co-perpetrators from Davao to national positions in government and law enforcement, which were key to the common plan. And after he appointed Mr. De La Rosa as chief of the PMP, Mr. De La Rosa used his new powers to move other police co-perpetrators into key policing roles. These new appointments expanded the geographic powers of the co-perpetrators and allowed them to create a larger network of individuals they controlled. Your Honours can see that structure of power on the chart on your screens. The co-perpetrators controlled the executive, they controlled the police, they controlled the Drug Enforcement Agency, the National Bureau of Investigation, and the Department of Justice. And they used this control to ensure that their subordinates carried out the plan to neutralise alleged criminals through violent crimes.
Ang galing!
For example, as PMP chief, Mr. De La Rosa now controlled some 180,000 police officers, who, as you have heard, he directed to neutralise drug personalities. Mr. La Peña now controlled 1,800 Philippine drug enforcement personnel. They used these subordinates as physical perpetrators to commit the crimes. Mr. Aguirre, as Secretary of Justice, now had control of the National Prosecution Service. He used this control to ensure that, except for a handful of low-level perpetrators in notorious cases, the crimes were not prosecuted, and a climate of impunity prevailed. And the co-perpetrators controlled the will of the physical perpetrators. As in Davao City, low-level members of the national network risked losing their jobs or being killed if they did not comply. For example, Your Honours can see the evidence of a police insider on your screens. He said that if his boss did not kill enough people during police operations, he would lose his post and be replaced. I quote, "We were told that there should be 5 to 10 deaths per month. The regional director called him and told him that if there were no deaths or no recorded killings, then he would be relieved of his duty. End quote. That's tab 124. Now on your screens is the evidence of an individual who police suspected of involvement in drugs. He surrendered to police to avoid being killed. The police held his status as an alleged drug pusher against him and recruited him as an asset. They made him kill other civilians who were alleged to be involved with drugs. He said, quote, "I surrendered myself to them. I knew that they wanted to kill me, so I became an asset of theirs," end quote. That's at tab 22. Your Honours, I will now turn to the requirement of an essential contribution. Mr. Duterte made an essential contribution to the crimes within the framework of the Common Plan. And the prosecution has set out 10 of Mr. Duterte's contributions in our brief at paragraphs 44 to 58. Many of these have been discussed in the prosecution's presentations. For example, Mr. Nichols spoke about how Mr. Duterte designed and disseminated the policy in this case, which is point A on the slide. He also spoke about point B, how Mr. Duterte established and oversaw the DDS. I have just addressed point E, on the appointment of key personnel to positions which were crucial to the execution of the crimes. Mr. Jeremy has spoken about point J, how Mr. Duterte publicly named so-called high-value targets who were then killed. And all members of the prosecution have touched upon point H, Mr. Duterte's public statements authorising, condoning and encouraging killing. Your Honours, without Mr. Duterte's essential contribution, the crimes in this case would not have been committed, or they would have been committed in a significantly different way. We can see this in the evidence of low-level members of the Davao Death Squad and the National Network, who said that Mr. Duterte's conduct had a causal effect on their perpetration of the crimes. You can see on the screens, one low-level perpetrator during the mayoral period said, I quote, "I was confident to continue killing people because anyway, we wouldn't be arrested for that," end quote. That's tab 38. A low-level police perpetrator during the presidential period was asked about the impact Mr. Duterte's public speeches had on his team, including when deciding to kill someone. He responded, quote, "It did have an effect on me because it's like I was saying to myself, well, even the president, he himself is ready to do something like this, and who am I?" End quote. That's tab 142. A senior police officer during the presidential period was asked why his police unit started killing in July 2016. He responded, I quote, "Because of the directive of the president," end quote. That's tab 120. Your Honours, from everything you have heard over the past 2 days, there can be no doubt about Mr. Duterte's knowledge and intent. Mr. Duterte meant to engage in the conduct that has been charged in this case. He intended that the crimes would be committed, and he was aware that they would be committed as a result of implementing the Common Plan. Mr. Duterte knew about the fundamental features of the Davao Death Squad and the National Network that enabled the co-perpetrators to control the physical perpetrators. And he was aware of the factual circumstances that enabled the co-perpetrators to control the crimes. Mr. Duterte knew because he himself established the DDS to kill people. He repeatedly broadcast his intention to implement the common plan nationally if elected president. He made it clear that this would involve killing. Once he was president, he moved his trusted co-perpetrators from Davao into key national positions. And as the number of killings rose, Mr. Duterte persisted with the common plan. He praised the 32 killings in a one-time big-time operation in Bulacan. He publicly named so-called high-value targets. He promised to protect police. And as Your Honours have heard, Mr. Duterte has admitted to many of these things. Your Honours, I will conclude my presentation by recalling two items. The first is Mr. Duterte's presidential campaign promise that he would stop drugs and crime in the Philippines within 3 to 6 months. And the second is the spread of killings during the first 6 months of Mr. Duterte's presidency.
I promise you, hindi naman believe yung ibang tao. Sabi ko, I would stop drugs and crime, criminality in 3 to 6 months.
That concludes the prosecution's submissions on the merits. Thank you, Your Honours.
Josh Motach. Thank you very much. Am I to understand that you have finished with the presentations on the merits?
Yes, that is correct.
You know that you still have some time, right?
Hopefully been efficient and we have finished now. Thank you.
Now, I'll give the floor to the legal representatives of the victims for their submissions on the merits. You have the floor. Thank you, Madam President. Our presentation shall be in two parts. I will start with my presentation, and my colleague Andres will conclude later on. And just to be sure, I have 30 minutes. Is that correct? Answer correct. Thank you.
Madam President, Your Honours.
No.
We speak today on behalf of thousands of victims and surviving families who have suffered immeasurable harm under the so-called anti-drug campaign conducted during the administration of the suspect, former President Rodrigo Roa Duterte. We speak for families who cannot be here, mothers who buried their sons, children who lost their parents, the spouses who now raise families alone, and communities that have lived for years under fear and silence, and that continue to bear the consequences of violence that swept through their neighborhoods like a storm. These victims appear today before you, not as mere statistics or distant figures, or images in report as pictured yesterday by the defense, but as human beings whose rights under the Rome Statute have been violated in the most profound ways. These proceedings relate to what has been labeled the Duterte's war on drugs and Duterte's bloody war on drugs. However, the campaign, as I will refer to it during my presentation, was less about combating the drug trade itself and more about policing poverty and social inequality. As the evidence on the record unequivocally shows, individuals targeted by Mr. Duterte anti-drug operations overwhelmingly came from impoverished communities where social mobility is limited and opportunities are scarce. Drug use, particularly methamphetamine, locally known as shabu, is often more prevalent in such low-income settings where people may turn to substances as a coping mechanism for their harsh living conditions. In these communities, structural conditions, including the absence of adequate mental health services, limited access to quality education, scarce employment opportunities, and the chronic stress associated with poverty, create an environment in which substance use is more likely to emerge. Therefore, patterns of drug use do not arise in a vacuum. They reflect deeper systemic inequalities and long-standing patterns of socioeconomic marginalization. The campaign disproportionately affected the poor and marginalized, especially in urban informal settlements marked by high levels of poverty. While the rhetoric of war focused on eradicating drug dealers and users, it was the most vulnerable members of society, those with the least power and resources, were caught in the crossfire. A significant number of the ones killed had little or no criminal history and were often accused of minor drug-related conduct or perceived drug use by the authorities. These were people living in poverty, were treated as expendable by a system that failed to prioritize their protection and to address the structural conditions underlying their struggles. Rather than addressing the root causes of drug addiction, such as poverty, lack of education, unemployment, and inequality, the Duterte administration framed the issue as a criminal one, focusing on punitive enforcement over social responses. Mr. Duterte's response was a selective, violent crackdown of the most vulnerable, recasting conditions of marginalizations as grounds for criminal targeting, rather as manifestations of social injustice. Framed on its face as a campaign against illegal drugs, it in reality reflected broader social political dynamics, including the targeting of marginalized communities, the use of state violence, and the deflection of attention from deeper structural problems. Mr. Duterte is charged under Article 7(1)(a) of the Rome Statute with the crimes against humanity of murder and attempted murder allegedly committed between 1st November 2011 and 16 March 2019 in or around Davao City during the period in which he was mayor of the town and across the Republic of the Philippines during his term as president of the country. The prosecution presented ample evidence showing that each of the contextual elements of crimes against humanity is satisfied at the required threshold for confirming the charges. During the period covered by the charges, the Davao Death Squad and the national network created by Mr. Duterte to commit the crimes carried out an attack against the civilian population within the meaning of Article 7(2)(a) of the statute, as reflected in a course of conduct involving the commission of multiple murders and attempted murders. The victims' accounts of events corroborate the prosecution evidence and show that the crimes they suffered were not spontaneous or isolated acts of violence, but rather a planned, directed, and organized attack against them. The attack was massive, carried out collectively with considerable seriousness, and directed against a multiplicity of civilians. The victims were all civilians. The repeated lethal operations were conducted in residential and other civilian settings. As already indicated, the victims largely came from marginalized communities, were suspected by the authorities of involvement in criminal often drug-related activities. And together with their families, they were targeted in their homes and neighborhoods. The attack was widespread and systematic, and we refer, Your Honor, to Annex D and E of the prosecution pre-trial brief. The attack was widespread because of its large-scale nature and the number of victims. In this regard, the number of victims affected by the events within the charges is one of the most relevant factors to be taken into consideration for the purpose of determining under the chapeau of Article 7.1 of the statute whether the attack was widespread or systematic. The broad geographical spread of the victimization combined with a significant number of victims confirm the wide scope of the attack. As the prosecution has made clear yesterday and today, the instances of murders and attempted murders in the document containing the charges and in the pre-trial brief are simply illustrative of a much broader pattern of victimization. In fact, the actual scale of victimization extends well beyond the 49 incidents affecting 78 victims presented by the prosecution. The prosecution itself referred to thousands of civilians murdered. And we recall here the content of paragraph 73 of the prosecution pre-trial brief, as well as the remarks by Ms. Croft just 15-20 minutes ago. As reported by Human Rights Watch in a report published in 2022, since 2016, the Philippine police have admitted its involvement in the death of more than 6,200 people in drug raids across the country. In a 2020 report, the United Nations Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights reported 8,663 deaths occurred in the drug war. The Human Rights Commission of the Philippines and domestic human rights group report death tolls that are 2 to 3 times higher than the UN figure. The attack was also systematic, well planned, and well executed, following a standard modus operandi. In many cases, it began with an individual receiving a visit or a phone call from an official from the local barangay, informing them that they were on a drug watch list drawn up by barangay officials and the police. In practice, these visits function less as warnings than as a means of confirming the identity and whereabouts of the intended target. As one victim reported, I quote, "A barangay official told my husband to surrender to the police because he was on the watch list as a drug user. He had given up drug use months earlier, so didn't go. 2 weeks later, 3 armed masked men wearing bulletproof vests arrived at our home in Manila and handcuffed him. I could hear my husband begging for his life from outside the room. We were crying, and the other armed men threatened to kill us as well. Moments later, my husband was shot dead." End of quote. Survivors, relatives, and neighbors consistently recount that armed men typically work in groups of 2, 4, or a dozen. They wore either police uniform or civilian clothes, often all black, with their face concealed by balaclava-style headgear, masks, baseball caps, or helmets. They carried handguns. As one victim explained, and I quote, "On 6 June 2017, at about 9:45 in the evening, I was at home with my husband, and our children were sleeping upstairs. 4 unidentified men wearing helmets and bonnets arrived at home looking for my husband. They broke down the front door. I started begging them to spare the life of my husband. The men pushed me away. My husband was shot in the chest and fell face down. While lying face down, he was shot 5 more times in the nape and head. The children woke up terrified because of the gunshots. End of quote. Attackers frequently travel by motorcycle, typically with 2 individuals on a single bike. Often a van, invariably white or black, and at times bearing markings associated with police vehicles was also present. They banged on doors and barged into rooms. The attackers did not identify themselves or provide warrants. Family members report hearing beatings and their loved ones begging for their lives. And I quote again from the recollection of one of the victims. 5 masked armed men broke into our house in Bulacan province where my father was playing cards. We could see him kneeling in a surrendering position. The men grabbed him and slammed him into a concrete wall several times. And then, just they throw him outside. We saw the shooting. We were just there. My father's face was bleeding from being hit, and he was begging them for mercy when he was shot. End of quote. Another victim explained, quote, my father collapsed to the floor but still tried to move, begging for his life. Yet the man continued shooting him. I couldn't count how many times I was so afraid. We also heard successive gunshots from outside. Later, we found that also 2 of our neighbors were killed. End of quote. The shooting could happen immediately, behind closed doors or in the street, or the victims would be taken away by the gunman only for shots to be heard minutes later and the body to be discovered by local residents. At times, bodies were dumped elsewhere, sometimes with hands tied or heads wrapped in plastic. Relatives typically found them after being alerted by policemen or by the neighbors. A victim recalled, quote, 6 masked armed men broke into the house where a small group, including several teenagers, were watching television. The men arrested and beat 2 young boys they believed were drug suspects and then took them away on motorcycles. A half hour later, after hearing from a uniformed policeman, we, referring to the relatives, rushed to a nearby bridge to find their bodies, both with gunshot wounds to the head, their hands tied with cloth. The gunmen were still at the scene, while uniformed police cordoned off the area. Another victim recounted, quote, a week after his brother was killed, 10 police officers, some in civilian clothes, arrested my other son and took him to the local barangay office. That evening, masked armed men abducted him from the barangay office. Shortly afterwards, his body was found under a bridge a block away. When we found him, we saw that his entire head had been wrapped in packing tape and his hands had been tied behind his back. He had been shot execution style through the mouth. End of quote. And another one, quote, "The body seemed like it was just thrown out. The nails were removed, one eyeball was missing, stuffed by cotton." End of quote. Relatives and witnesses often saw uniformed police in the immediate surroundings of the incident, securing the perimeter. Special crime scene investigators typically arrived within minutes. In numerous cases, an unregistered 38 or 45 caliber gun and a packet of shabu were found placed beside the body. And instead of fleeing from the police, the gunman would mingle with them. As one of the victims described, I quote, "On 7 June 2018 in the morning, I was at home when I saw my son coming back from his work on the opposite side of the street. Suddenly, I saw 8 policemen, 3 in uniform and 3 in civilian clothes. 2 of them crossed the street. They took my son and banged his head against the wall. They accused him of selling shabu. He denied. He was then taken to the door of the house. He was shouting, 'Mama, help me!' I took a piece of wood and hit one policeman. Suddenly, one policeman pointed the gun against my son. He shot twice, at the head and at the chest.
Shit.
While in shock, I
Look at
saw
her.
one police officer placing 4 packets of shabu and a gun around the body of my son." End of quote.
My God.
The same account of
Look at
another
her.
victim who simply recalled, "After the shooting of my son, who was only 19, uniformed police showed me his body in the house and a 45 caliber handgun next to his body. I told them that my son could not afford and did not possess a gun and therefore could not possibly have attempted to shoot at the police. I said he cannot even pay the rent. His sister paid the rent for him."
Ooh.
End of quote. On occasions, victims were still alive when found by the relatives and taken to the hospital, where they later succumbed to their injuries.
That's sad.
Survivors recount the terror and enduring feeling of still being hunted as follows, and I quote, "In September 2016, a police officer pretending to be a commuter boarded my tricycle. He asked me to pass by the police station. There, I was stopped by a group of men who turned to be police officers. I was taken to the precinct, beaten, and forced to reveal the identity of drug pushers. I didn't know. Later that evening, I was taken to a dark place and shot multiple times. Despite the injuries, I managed to escape and save my life. I still have the consequence of the injuries, and I feel deep sadness, anger, and fear of being caught again." End of quote. Another survivor explained, quote, "They killed my 4 friends kneeling and defenseless. I heard a barrage of gunshots, voices, and one officer saying, 'Let it be. Let's say they fought back and let's leave the evidence.' I lay next to one of my friends pretending to be dead. When the armed officer left, I crawled out of the room and headed towards the edge of a ravine. Holding my chest with one hand to stop the bleeding, I slid downwards and fell to the creek bed. I crossed it, climbed the hill on the other side, and walked toward the highway. There, I encountered someone I knew and desperately begged for help." End of quote. Although the charges concern only the crimes of murder and attempted murder, victims' accounts also reveal widespread acts of torture, ill treatment, and rape. Young people were particularly exposed to torture and cruel and inhuman treatments, including unlawful arrest. A number of victims participating in these proceedings were minor when they were attempted to be killed, and a number of victims participating in the proceedings recount the killing of their nephew, son, cousin, who was under 18 at the age of killing. And this morning, Mr. Jeremy provided the example of Kian de los Santos, who was 17 at the time of his killing. Reported forms of torture include beating, kicking, slapping, blows to the head, electrocution, and death threats. On several occasions, law enforcement officials used arrests, inclusion in the drug watch list, and drug-related accusations as a tool of coercion to perpetrate rape and other forms of sexual violence. In September 2018, a young boy was taken by the police and brought to the precinct. His mother recounted, I quote, "At the precinct, he was repeatedly coerced into confessing a crime he was accused of. If you don't admit, your life will be the price," they threatened him. When he refused to confess, he was beaten with a gun and electrocuted. On the night of 16 September 2018, between 9 and 10, I received a phone call from my cousin urging me to go in a certain location in Manila. What I saw was a nightmare. My son had been discarded like an animal, his lifeless body lying on the boulevard, abandoned like a fish by the roadside. I rushed to the scene, but I was blocked by the police. I was not even allowed to touch or embrace my son's body. Even in death, my son was not treated with dignity. It was like they just threw my son out like a pig. I finally found him at the funeral home where I had to pay to recover the body. I had nothing. I was bargaining as if I were buying fish. In the end, I paid approximately 45,000 pesos to take my son's body for burial. Oh my God. Now I wonder, will justice ever be served?
Excuse me, Counsel, you have 5 minutes left.
Official police reports of these incidents invariably invoked self-defense to justify the killings, despite eyewitness accounts that portray the killings as cold-blooded murders of unarmed individuals. To bolster their claims, the police routinely planted guns, spent ammunition, and drug packets beside the bodies. While these official accounts contrasted markedly with the ones provided by the relatives, they were notably consistent among themselves, typically characterized the incidents as by-bust anti-drug operation, differing little besides the names, places, and dates. The victim was invariably described as a dealer who attempted to sell to undercover officers conducting a buy-bust operation. Specialized local anti-drug units called Station Anti-Illegal Drug Special Operation Task Units were usually involved. According to the reports, the victim, after being put under arrest, often uncuffed, allegedly pulled out a weapon and sought to shoot the police. In every case, the victim was killed, and none of the arresting officers were armed. In most cases, the police reporting having found shabu on or near the victim's corpse, and sometimes a gun. Often, after the killing, the bodies of the victims were brought directly to the funeral parlors. Families then had to start their calvary to find the body of their loved ones, and they had to pay high fees to retrieve the bodies. R/50082/25 had to sell the house to be able to pay for their brother's funeral and burial. Sometimes the bodies were instead left on the street or thrown into the water in a plastic bag. I believe it's a good time to stop for the flow of the speech. Thank you very much, Your Honor.
Yes. Merci beaucoup, Maître.
Thank you very much,
Merci
Ms.
beaucoup.
Masida. The hearing is now suspended and we shall resume at 2 p.m. Thank you very much.
Nakot. Ayan, tapos na naman. Balik tayo ng oras. Teka. Isang oras. Ano daw? Balik. Teka. Next, third session is 11:25 tonight. Ayan. My goodness. Isang oras at kalahati. Mga katropa. Mahaba-habang pag-aantay yan. Balik na lang tayo, second batch. Pwede? 11:25 pa eh. 11:25 my time. Ulit nag-uumpisa. 10:15 pa lang dito. Haba nito. Magse-second batch tayo mga katropa ha. I-end ko na to tapos balik na lang tayo ng 11:20. Kasi mga 1 oras at kalahati tayo mag-aantay dito. Ano naman ingangaw-ngaw ko sa inyo. Nasaan na ba yun? Ayan. 1 oras at kalahati eh. Balik na lang tayo ha mga katropa. Gusto nyo? Pakita ko yung aking maske. Walang maske. Ayan. 1 oras at kalahati. Tagal eh. O sige, balik na lang tayo. Balik tayo ha. 1 oras at kalahati eh. Mahaba-haba yun para magkaroon tayo ng energy. Ha? Sabi nga ni Attorney Butuan sa speech niya, naging blood thirsty. Grabe. Totoo lang. Sobra talaga. At saka napansin nyo, sobrang dami ng bastos. Almost DDS, lahat bastos ang pananalita. Napansin nyo yun? At saka ang gurguran, parang ano na lang ngayon. Parang tumetegi na lang ng manok. Diba? Grabe talaga. At saka yung sobrang bastos magsalita. The more you bastos, the more you become famous. Diba? Yung panahon ni Digong yun. No? Aminin na nagkamali ito. Pag ginawa niya yun, sisingilin sila ng mga nako na yaman at yung hindi siguro niya magagawa. Correct, music lover, totoo. Kaya kahit pa paano, bumabawi naman ng konti. Gumagawa naman ng kabutihan. Kasi high-tech na ngayon eh, lahat nakikita na ngayon ng tao. Hindi kagaya noon, panahon ng kanyang tatay. Walang mga CCTV. At walang internet. Ngayon, high-tech na. Lahat mapapansin. Mamaya ulit. Abisuhan ko kayo. Mamaya ulit. 1 oras at kalahati daw, ha? Sige, maraming salamat po. Mamaya ulit. Putulin natin kasi almost 3 hours. More or less 3 hours din to. So, mamaya na lang ulit, ha? Okay, thank you po. Bye-bye.